So this is the time of the year where we harvest the cactus pads, or rather Roger harvests the cactus pads and he preps them, and basically we've figured out how we want to be preserving these from now on, because normally he'll harvest the pads and then clean off the spines, and then we he tries to eat as much as possible before they go bad. But this year what we've decided to do is we're going to start, after he prepares them, I'm going to chop them up and blanch them and then freeze them, and then we'll be able to pull them out and pickle them as we need them. So this is what the cactus looks like right now, and quite a bit of it is ready to harvest. So I am going to pass over to Roger, who's going to tell you how he gets these pads off of here, and then he's going to show you how he takes all the pokey spines off of them.
Thorns, yeah.
All the thorns.
Yeah.
So he's got very tough fingers from doing this every year.
I don't know about that. So for many of you, this is just an odd novelty towards harvesting cactus, but it is in many parts of the world is utilized as a delicacy. I was raised on it. My pop, he showed me how to do this many years ago, so my family grew up harvesting that. My pop didn't, and so the part is it's full of nutrients and in them. So the bigger picture as you look, I don't know if Sheila wants to come in. If for those of you who are not really familiar, there are thorns on them. So this is something that we're going to be looking at today is a real issue. They don't cause massive blood or nothing like that. They're just an irritant, just like a fine little stickers that you might get out of lumber, things like that can drive you crazy, and if you get a lot of them. So,
but Roger's gotten pretty good about not getting too many in his fingers.
Correct. So tools I have that I use is a very sharp paring knife, rigid blade, not a blade that flexes. Years ago I used to use one that flexes, and that did not turn out as well. It's a nice sharp paring knife. You can kind of see it from the scale for my hand. It's approximately, what would you say, my hand's 6 inches, so 7-8 inches long approximately. It works, but that's including the handle. And a nice pair of tongs. So moving on, these pads are actually a little too old, but
which ones are too old?
Well, for the most part, when they look like this, they're going to be a little tough. So when they're younger, you can see their thorns. They're a vibrant green. Their thorns stick out. They're very, very, very prevalent. You can see the thorns. Those tend to be the prime age to harvest them.
Okay.
But we couldn't get out here due to just a lot of crazy stuff going on. However, this is at the time when, if we don't harvest now, that we're going to run into where they're just going to be too hard to eat. So they're not horrible. They're a little tougher than we like, but we're not. It'll work out just fine. So how we do this is real simple. You got to watch as you cut, moving your hands. You want to back up just a sec. As you turn your hand, you don't want to come here and try and cut this one and then put back your hand into another paddle. So you just kind of open your hand to keeping your hands open and free. You grab a thong, your tongue, not your thong. Sorry. And you just cut down. Very easy and soft. And that's another way that you know is that you just gently cut. You do know they're still tender because you're just applying it.
Yeah, they
gently.
cut really easy.
Right.
You shouldn't have to saw on it to get it off.
Right.
If you do that, it's going to be too hard to eat.
Right. Then you just pretty much discard it because you're not going to want to eat that. Because they can get, when they're much older, like this bigger paddle here, one of the main ones, if I was to cut this, I would feel fibers as I'm cutting them. And those fibers would be very much similar to like wood-like and not enjoyable to eat at all. So we just continue to kind of go on, cutting off here. Much of this too is choice. Like this guy here has a lot of bend in it. I'm going to cut him off, but I'm not going to harvest it either. That would be a very, very difficult to pull off all the thorns.
Oh, because it has it's caved.
It's caved in.
It's easier to clean the ones that are not caved in.
Correct. They're nice and straight. Those are very easy to clean.
But we still want to trim it off anyway, just because we need to trim the cactus, right?
Correct.
Because we don't want it to get too big and out of control.
Correct. Because they can get very, very large. Some plants.
Let me come on the other side of you.
Some plants could get up to 20 feet tall, and that would be something we wouldn't want in our front yard. So we just tried to manage it. Same thing here. This leaf has kind of seen some fatigue. I'm not sure. Looks like it had split. I'm not sure what happened.
Let me see.
So we're gonna just cut it
and throw it away.
Same thing with this guy. Looks like.
Roger, can we put these in the compost?
Well, we cannot. I mean, we can. The problem would be is these cactus are a very aggressive plant.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So we would grow another cactus. So
yeah, the way to grow another cactus is to take one of these pads and bury it.
Right. And truth be told,
I forgot about that.
These cactus pads as well, we've had in the past where we've had a pad just like this and left it on the ground. See, we have it on rock here, so that we're okay. But if we were to put it on dirt, maybe had a little rain or something, in a couple of months, we'll actually it'd be very difficult to pick up because they'll root along the side. Right.
That makes sense.
So the thing I learned this year, which Sheila gets to laugh about this one, was that last year, and this part's not funny, this was just a maintenance thing that I chose to do last year. We got scale on this cactus, and for those,
not the first time we've ever had scale on our cactus.
I had no idea what scale was until last year. So for me,
it looked like white cotton everywhere.
Right, but you told me it's actually a bug.
It's an insect.
An insect.
It's a pest.
So it looked like cotton all over it. So we cut away much of this plant. And so this was quite a bit larger last year. As we cut it down, the plant got quite a bit smaller, and this year was the most aggressive I've ever seen any cactus grow.
We got a whole lot of new pads on here.
Correct. And so in that, I got to learn that that could be a good thing or a bad thing. So now I'm going to start.
It's a good thing with as much as you like eating it.
Yeah.
And now that we can preserve it, you can eat it all year long.
Right.
That one's going to be too big, huh?
I think so. I think I'm going to just cut this guy off, but not harvest it.
Okay.
I'm trying to shape the plant. Trying to pretend like I'm reading into next year's future.
Right.
Because at this point, some of these pads I'm going to want to help grow this plant to be a little bigger for next year. And
taller, but not wider for us.
Correct.
We don't want this to take up a lot of square footage, and you probably want to get that off of the neighbor's side.
Right. So that's, oh, look.
Okay, so another thing about these cactus is they produce the prickly pear cactus fruits. So tell us about that, Roger.
Okay, so
there's one starting right there.
Right. So we will probably in another video, if we are blessed by the Lord this year to get more than just these on the part I'm about to cut off. Typically more will grow here. So the fruit are, what did you call them in English?
Prickly pears.
Prickly pear fruit.
Yeah, tell them what the name is in Spanish.
Tunas. So, so they're very odd. As they get very big, many of you will see them turn into like a yellow or to a purple, depending on the species.
The variety.
The variety. So on the larger ones, you would cut them off. They're typically this large, so they're kind of like a small apple.
They're about 3 inches usually, right?
Right.
If you had to guess.
Correct. And you cut them down the spline here, and then you would just, using tongs, peel the outside. Many of you are like, oh, that seemed like a lot of work. But for those of us who enjoy the flavor, it's actually very, very sweet. Kind of, you've explained to me, similar to a kiwi and similar to a kiwi. But there's heavy seeds in there, so it's a little strange to eat for because you are to digest the seeds, not pull them all out and everything else. But at any rate,
I like to take them and juice them.
Ah, yeah.
That way you take this, filter this.
Oh, we're gonna try and do this whole thing, aren't
Sift the seeds out. Yeah, you might want to just take that whole piece and cut it off. Yeah, I like to strain the seeds out and keep the juice and pulp from it. Because it's really good. Roger doesn't mind swallowing the seeds.
No,
but
I do not.
I do not like that at all. Not a fan.
Well, you were not raised on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, being raised on things like cactus, you're quite a bit used to it, just like many other varieties of food that we all eat. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap this up.
Ah, good. We're getting quite a bit in our bowl.
Oops.
It's hard doing this with a camera on you, huh, Roger?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to stay focused on the more important part, which is not letting these stickers get into you, because it'll drive you crazy. And it doesn't hurt much as just a very large irritant.
Now, do you want to cut this one because it's growing up
yes.
against that
Thank
other
you.
one?
Absolutely. That will cause problems later.
But we haven't seen any scale this year. It's just weird because we never had scale on anything.
Right. And we have a very big saying around here, the things grow, and some years things are really good and they do really well, and other years it doesn't. Our outlook is that the Lord provides. And so when we see he provides this year, this cactus, which I've never seen anything like this. This is an amazing blessing that for our family and
So it was kind of a blessing that we got the scale last year so that you could trim it way back so that we would have an abundant harvest this year.
Right, which comes into how we look at things when we look at it from very close view. Some things that go bad, we see it from that, and then we focus on the bad, but we don't see that sometimes the Lord can bring things that are bad and then bring a redemption and a very positive spin or a very good story out of something that was bad. So exactly, that's where I was coming. The scale was horrible, and we were very
we didn't
sad
get a
last
harvest.
year. Yeah, there was hardly anything last year, and we were very bummed. And this year, I've never seen anything like this. So. I got it. There you go.
Oh,
I got one. So if you can see that, I'll try to get out the sun better.
Actually, you need to be in the shade.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes. See
So,
if we can zoom in on that. Where's it at? Oh, right there.
yeah. So, typically, then you're done.
He pulled it out with his teeth.
Not everyone does. They'll go get it. Go
Get some tweezers.
Get some tweezers. They'll put some antibiotic or whatever. And I'm like, I've been doing it so long.
Roger's macho.
No. No.
I used to not care for eating the cactus, but it's kind of grown on me. I kept trying it over and over because I know it's good for you. And I learned how to pickle it, and I really like it that way.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Roger sometimes will also grill it. He'll bake it first, and then he'll put it on the grill, and it's really good that way.
Right. The charring of the cactus as a whole paddle. So for those of you who typically dice up your nopales or the cactus, sound like, well, that's weird. If you chop it up, how would you grill it? No, you actually will take a whole pad, put it in the oven in a tray, like the canned jalapenos, onions, garlic, and roast it till they're soft. And then in full paddles, get your grill nice and where you can see it smoking and very hot. And you just slap it on there until it's sear it, and then you have the grill marks, and you flip it over. Game changer. It's very, very tasty.
So the thing about cactus is it has a lot of mucilage, basically slimy stuff, kind of similar to like okra and things like that. So it's all in how you prepare it as to how slimy it's going to be when you eat it. So if you, if you boil it, that gets some of the slime out. When you pickle it, that cuts through some of the slime. But the best way to cut through the slime is when you grill it. And that's really good. And these cactus pads, they have a little bit of a tang to them. And you heard Roger say the word that these are actually called, it's called nopales.
Nopales when
Nopales.
you cook them, yes.
And the fruit that grows on them is called tunas.
Yes.
So.
Some of the, and I've only done this type of cactus. I know others have tried other ones. And for those of you who have and are watching this video, maybe you can share some of your other experiences with other cactus, because we're not afraid of trying new ones, but this is the only type that we have had good success with. So feel free to comment or add links in below.
And if we get some ripened fruit on here, we'll record that as well, so you can see what the ripened fruit looks like.
Okay.
But considering this requires hardly no water at all, and it's very productive, this is a great source of nutrition. So, as with gardening and pretty much almost everything, there's lots of different ways to do stuff, but we are going to show you how Roger does it.
So, I am peeling the thorns off of the cactus to make nopales, and as you see in the video, this does take a bit of time. Here I'm cutting the edge off just to kind of reduce the labor time.
Because there's so many thorns on the edges.
Correct. And some of them are kind of easy to just disappear on the edge. So instead of having a little surprise later while we're cleaning and stuff, I just rather just cut off the edges and get away from the possibility of having mistakes of thorns being left behind. So I want to talk about dethorning. There is not a super fast process, really. There are cutters out there and other things like that, but they come and go because they're not really all that successful. So dethorning cactus is a slow process, but it's a kind of a perspective thing. Some people go fishing. They set out there for hours and hours and hours just fishing. They enjoy the sound of the wind, good conversation with friends. It's kind of a thing to take your mind off of it. Other tasks very similar are knitting, crocheting. What other ones could you give me an idea of, Sheila? But
like cathartic.
There you go.
Cathartic type tasks like snapping green beans.
Right.
This is when you have a lot to do. It's not hard to do, just takes some time, and you just try to enjoy the process rather than dreading it.
Right. And with cactus, depending on your timing, I mean, it does take a minute depending on your skill. Some people are really fast at this. I've never been one of those that have been able to do this process extremely fast. So I do them in phases so that a cactus does not dry out super fast once you pull it off the plant, that it becomes, where you have to put it in the fridge in just a couple of hours. You could actually be left on the counter for a day or so, and then beyond that, you'd want to stick it in the fridge. But Sheila's right, it's a cathartic process. You can sit there and visit with people, talk, and it doesn't take a lot of skill other than just, hey, don't not pay attention and get where your hand could get caught.
Yeah, and he does this in the outside. He does this outside, usually in the evening, like right now. It's about 7 o'clock, and the sun is not hot right now. We're just hearing the cool breeze on our patio. He does it on this cardboard box so that when he's done, he just throws the whole thing away. And he doesn't have to worry about any little thorns in the house, or he doesn't have to worry about making a mess or anything like that.
Right. And These paddles are a bit old, so the needles are I'm going to have to do more work on pulling them out. They, as I said earlier in the video, these are on the edge, that they still are good, and especially after Sheila pickles them, makes the nopales very delicious. Through pickling them, it is going to be a reward through the whole year. So, but typically you'd want them younger than what I have here today.
Some of the ways we eat this is pretty much as a condiment, or an ingredient like in scrambled eggs. We'll top our pinto beans with it. They're good to put a little bit in your taco with your taco meat.
Taco or burrito mix.
Yeah, because they're flavored with vinegar and onion and garlic and chilies, and really it's very good.
As Sheila's been doing the canning, it's extremely important to me that I clean all of the needles more than typical, because normally like I showed earlier, I get a few in my hand, it's no big deal, but I would be very, very upset with myself if I had to have Sheila enjoy that experience, and I do mean that in a very facetious way. As you're cutting this, the cactus, the blade gets just covered in slime. The blade is not
starts
dull.
drying.
It starts drying, kind of building a film.
So.
Yeah.
So after Roger trimmed up all the cactus and took all the thorns off of it, here's what we have. I had 3 bags of this cactus. I'm going to show you what we're going to do next. We take this cactus, and we like to do it in strips about that wide and narrow. It gives us the most versatility. And what we're going to do is prepare this to be blanched. And what blanching does, we're going to blanch it for 1 minute. And that is going to stop the natural enzymes in the cactus, so that when we freeze it, it keeps its color better, and it also helps keep its texture better. So our big goal this year was to try to find a way to preserve this cactus so that we can have it all year long. And I looked up to see if I could find some canning recipes, but unfortunately, the only thing I found was I found, I think, 2 people who canned it, and they didn't follow any kind of approved official type recipe for it. So I don't feel comfortable with that. I am not a rogue canner. Rogue canners don't feel like it's necessary to follow exactly a pre-approved canning recipe. But I don't have that level of comfort. I probably never will. I think canning is too critical. The health of the family is too important to risk it, in my opinion. So the reason there are approved recipes is because different foods have different levels of acidity. If you have a high acidic food, it can be water bathed. If you have, which is just basically boiling it under at least 2 inches underneath, boiling the cans, the jars, at least 2 inches underneath the water level for however long the canning recipe says. Sometimes it may require adding lemon juice or vinegar to increase the acidity level even more. So the thing is, I thought about following a recipe for something kind of similar like okra in order to use the data from that, like how long to can it for, what the head space should be in the jar. But that recipe is for okra. I do not have any confirmation that the acidity level in cactus is the same as okra. So until somebody with the proper equipment, like the U.S. Department of whatever it is, canning and preserving, does that test with their equipment, I cannot make assumptions that canning recipe for okra will be a safe canning recipe for cactus. So, if any of you are new to canning, my suggestion is stick with canning recipes. Even if you're not new, my suggestion is stick with canning recipes, because it might be something that needs to be pressure canned. And if it is pressure canned, how long do you pressure can it? So, the density of cactus, how long is it going to take to pressure can it and have the extreme temperature reach all the way through the product and kill any of the botulism spores that are on all of our food? So, problem with botulism is it doesn't become deadly until you remove all the oxygen. And that, in a sense, is exactly what's happening with canning. So with water bath canning, the temperature is not high enough to kill the botulism spores. There's no way to boil it enough to get it to kill the botulism bacteria. So you rely on the acidity level to be high enough that the botulism cannot grow. If the food is not acidic enough or can't be made acidic enough, you have to pressure can. And when you pressure can, the temperature of the food gets much higher than what you can get it just by boiling it. So that is what kills the botulism. And the crazy thing about botulism is you could have botulism in your canned food and not even know it. The food will not look like it's spoiled, and you won't know it until you get sick, and many people have died from botulism. So in my opinion, it's not something to play around with. So instead of canning, because clearly there's probably not enough demand for this kind of food. There's not a lot of people in the United States that eat cactus, I would imagine. So this stuff hasn't been tested. So because of that, I am going to freeze these to preserve them. And we're going to freeze them in smaller batches. And then when we need more cactus at the ready, what we will do is we will do what's called a refrigerator pickle. So basically, we're going to follow a pickling recipe for canning, but we're not going to can it. We're just going to store it in the refrigerator, and it'll store for several months. There's enough vinegar in there, and with the cool temperatures that it'll last quite a while. But we'll eat it before a few months is up. And that's how we've decided to go ahead and do this until such time as we can get access to a official approved canning recipe to make this shelf stable. So, unfortunately, it's going to take up space in our freezer, but that's okay. That's what we'll do for the things that we either can't can or we don't care for the taste of it canned. And that's just one of our preservation methods. Now, I'm curious how this will do dehydrated, but we should test that out. For now, though, we're just going to freeze this because I did test that out and it turned out just fine. We have a batch in the refrigerator now that I froze and then turned into refrigerator pickled cactus. You want to get that out of the fridge for me, Roger, and I'll show what that looks like right now? I did that, what, a week ago?
I think so.
Tastes really good. Here's what this looks like. So this is the cactus and strips of onion and cloves of garlic, along with vinegar, water, and peppercorns and coriander seed. So that's what it looks like after it's been frozen and then pickled. This has not been cooked other than the 1 minute blanching that you're going to see us do in a minute with this fresh cactus. So it tastes amazing. Do you like it, Roger?
I absolutely do.
All right, here you go. Yeah, the home preserver does not have access to equipment to test whether or not food has botulism in it after it's been canned. So that's why you've got to only follow trusted, tested recipes. So if any of you know if Nopales cactus has been tested with canning and I just missed it, please let me know, because I would much rather can this. Okay, so here's my setup. I've got the fresh cactus strips. I've got boiling water. I've got an ice bath here. And then I've got some towels laid out.
What I did last time was just to open that
So first we're going to dip this right into the boiling water. And it's still boiling. So So I'm going to set my timer for 1 minute. I like to use a strainer basket like this so that I don't have to fish these little pieces out. I just move from one step to the next pretty easily. And this can be frozen without blanching it, but better quality food after it's been frozen if you blanch it first. Now I'm going to pull this out and set it right in the ice water. And that's going to stop the cooking. Bring the temperature down very quickly. And in the meantime, my water is going to come back to a boil so that I can do the next batch. And now I'm just going to empty this out onto my towel and help it dry a little bit before we freeze it. And now that the water is come back to a boil, we put the next batch in and set our timer for 1 minute. And I'll stir it a little bit just to make sure that everything's getting into the boiling water real well. The nice thing about this step too, before freezing it, is we are getting rid of some of that slime by boiling it, rinsing it, and straining it. Okay. I'm going to show you what the texture of this looks like after it's been blanched and then cooled and allowed to dry for a couple minutes. It's pretty flexible. The color is a little darker. And of course, this is edible at any stage. And now I'm going to close the lid and let that come back to a boil pretty quickly. And we're just going to keep doing this until we're all done. Now that all the cactus is blanched, it's time to freeze it. And we're going to, because we're doing quite a bit of this and we want it to last a good while in the freezer, I'm going to do it in these food saver bags using my food saver sealer. And what I've determined is that about 3 cups of the cactus per bag is going to be right about the right amount when I defrost it to put into a quart jar with the pickling brine. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 3-cup increments. That's 1, 2, and these are quart-size food saver bags. And 3. You don't have to use a food saver to suck the air out. You can do this without doing that, but I just want to keep as much quality as possible. And I'm going to press. So what I ended up having to do is put this cactus in the freezer because there was too much moisture in the pack, and whenever I would try to seal it with my food saver, it would suck that liquid up there and not allow it to seal. So I put it in the freezer so that it would harden that moisture into ice and not get sucked up in there so badly. Let's see if it works. Yep, that's a good seal. So that's going to stay in the freezer until I'm ready to pull a bag out, defrost it, and put it in a jar with my pickling recipe. And I'll do a future video when it's time to do a new jar. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us as we learn to live a more natural lifestyle. I hope you have a blessed day.